September 19th. Burgoyne's troops march into a clearing at Freeman's farm. They see no American soldiers. Suddenly, from the surrounding woods, they hear a strange sound. Turkey gobbling. It is the secret code of Daniel Morgan's Rifle Corps. Their order, in flagrant breach of 18th century military etiquette, is to aim directly at the officers.
Several Americans place themselves in high trees, and when they see a British officer's uniform, they kill him by deliberately aiming at his person. Men, and particularly officers, drop on either side of me. The Americans too have heavy losses, but more and more of their reinforcements keep arriving.
Burgoyne is astounded. Not only has a huge army assembled from nowhere, worse, the Americans, whom he has called a mob of undisciplined provincials, are clearly able to fight. Burgoyne sends a frantic message to General Howe, who he assumes is still in New York.
The American army now between us and Albany outnumbers us. No operation, my lord, has yet been undertaken from New York to support us. There is no movement up the Hudson River. I never dreamed I would be left to make my way through this hostile countryside, surrounded by enemies, without any cooperation from New York. Burgoyne.
What was supposed to happen with Burgoyne and Howe in 1777 is a puzzle which historians have been teasing out ever since it happened, and it's still very far from clear. If Howe had seriously thought that Burgoyne's campaign depended on him, it wouldn't have been very difficult to make a detachment up the Hudson River to help him. Conversely, if Burgoyne had imagined that his success depended on what Howe was doing, one supposes he might have taken some steps to inform Howe of exactly where he intended to be and when, which he didn't.
Howe is having troubles of his own. His advance toward Philadelphia is meeting with stubborn resistance from Washington and the main American army. Howe fights and wins a fierce battle at Brandywine Creek. Both sides suffer heavy losses. Howe finally captures Philadelphia on September 26th. It is a hollow victory. Congress has fled.
In European terms, the capital is the seat of government, the seat of the monarch, and the mere threat of the loss of the capital would bring a government to terms. The same thinking must have influenced Howe's constant feeling that he ought to get Philadelphia, that Philadelphia was somehow the capital, whatever that might mean in America, and that this would perhaps be a solution and lead to a political settlement. But on the Americans went.
At Saratoga, Burgoyne is outnumbered 2-1, and the American forces continue to grow. He holds an urgent meeting with his generals. Baron von Riedesel and Simon Fraser urge him to retreat across the Hudson. Instead, Burgoyne orders another direct assault on the American army to force a passage to Albany.
Burgoyne was a gambler by temperament, loved gambling all his life. His temperament was not cautious. And as far as he was concerned, he was trying to execute a strategy which could work and which it was worth trying.
October 7th, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The British begin their attack. At first, the American response is weak. General Gates refuses to leave his tent.
The minute Burgoyne showed up, Gates didn't know what to do. Gates's strength was as a paper shuffler. He could administer and work at a desk. He just was not a fighter. Once the battle began, he was worthless, literally, on the battlefield.
Seizing the initiative in the field and leading the counterattack is the most brilliant and fearless general of the American Army, Benedict Arnold.
Arnold rides up and points his sword at the enemy. Morgan's men, urged on by Arnold, hurl themselves against the English and Germans with deadly fire from their rifles. I can't describe the bravery of Arnold on this battlefield. He's inspired with the fury of a demon.
3 years later, Arnold will become the Revolution's most famous traitor. But in 1777, at Freeman's Farm, he is its most heroic fighter. Arnold's horse is shot from under him. Seriously wounded, Arnold rallies his men to carry on the attack.
Arnold, as a field general, was electric to the men. And when he was there, they would do things no one else could get them to perform. And here he broke the line, the last line that Burgoyne had. With that, Burgoyne had to start to retreat.
The British officers, ignoring their own personal danger, lead their troops in one last stand.
General Fraser is hit. He was shot by a rifleman hiding in a tree. Everyone, from Burgoyne to the lowliest private, is stunned. He's faint, and he's losing blood. He asked if our army is defeated. We told him no. He appeared for the moment, pleased.
About 3 in the afternoon, we are waiting for our dinner guests. Instead, they bring in General Fraser on a litter. They clear the table and use it as a bed for the general. The ball has gone through the general's bowels. All night I hear him lying there, groaning. All fatal ambition, and poor General Burgoyne, and my poor wife. He dies at 8 o'clock the next morning.
The supply of rebels is inexhaustible. It's like Hydra's head. When you cut one snake off, 7 more spring up in its place. For 3 weeks, no one has slept through the night. We are running low on rations. To keep spirits up, I have ordered the distribution of the last 12 barrels of rum.
October 10th, 2 in the afternoon. We take refuge in the cellar. My children lie on the earth with their heads on my lap. The sounds of the battle are growing louder, and I am sitting in the corner, trembling. I am more dead than alive. Not so much because of mine own danger, as from worrying about my husband. Of all the women whose husbands have been killed or wounded, shall I be the only fortunate one?
We hear this huge sound, like the howling of dogs. At first we think it's a trick of the enemies, so we send out a detachment to reconnoitre. They come back and report to us. It's wolves. One sets up a cry when it finds a corpse. Then the others join it in that hideous sound as they rip it apart. The howling gets louder and louder.